Hello everyone, Isha here, and it is the end of the 2023 Formula One season where Max Verstappen was crowned the champion pretty early on. Now, for today's video, I have a lot to talk about. I will be talking about the race itself and a recap of the race, standings, so drivers and constructors, as well as a quick season recap. I'll mostly be focusing on the second half of the season, and then just my personal insight into what next season will be like, or my hopes for next season. So let's get started with today's race. So as usual, it was a Max Verstappen win. Second and third on the podium, we had Charles Leclerc and George Russell. Fourth, fifth, sixth went to Checo, Lando, and Oscar. And then Fernando, Yuki, Lewis, and Lance Stroll finished up the rest of the top 10. Now, the biggest shocker to me in these results for the race today was Carlos Sainz not being anywhere in the top 10. Carlos finished in 18th place, which is awful, not just for Carlos, but also for Ferrari. And because of that, Ferrari wasn't able to score as many points as they needed to beat Mercedes in the constructor standings and take that second place spot. And I will be talking more about that later. But basically, Carlos was in 9th place, I believe, until around lap 56, where Ferrari decided to come in with one of those unique Ferrari strategies that we all really appreciate this season. And they had Carlos come in for a tire change, and I think they were banking on the possibility of a safety car in the last 2 laps, which did not happen, obviously, and Carlos ended up finishing in 18th place. Now, some other things that happened in the race were Charles Leclerc being his own strategist, as him and Carlos always have to be anyway. And when he found out that Sergio Perez had gotten a 5-second penalty for touching or damaging a little bit of Lando's car, he tried to save Ferrari and get them into the second place space in the constructor standings by allowing Sergio to get in front of him so that the gap between Checo and George Russell would be big enough that Checo could still be in third. However, that did not happen. George Russell was too close, too quick, and he got that third place position. And because of his and Lewis Hamilton's points, Ferrari was forced to be in third place. Now, overall, during the race, there were lots of back and forth changes for all the spots, lots of lead changes as well. Max Verstappen led plenty of the laps. Charles Leclerc led some. Yuki Tsunoda also led some. And I feel like this was Yuki Tsunoda's best performance overall this season. I think that he had a great performance today. He started in 6th. He finished in 8th, so not so bad, but a good amount of points for him. And now let us take a look at the standings. So let's start with the driver standings. Obviously, Max Verstappen's in 1st, Checo is in 2nd, then Lewis in 3rd, and for that very highly competitive 4th spot, we got Fernando Alonso. Now, this was a big shocker to me because last weekend for Vegas, I was pretty certain that it was going to go to Carlos Sainz. And then after yesterday's quali results, I was pretty certain it was going to go to Lando Norris. I had never imagined in any of my scenarios that it would go to Fernando Alonso. And it was for a tie as well. So that was really interesting. And I guess it's just a great example of how quickly things can change in Formula One. And, had one of the drivers scored an extra point, had that happened, the scenario would be completely different. But 4th place went to Fernando Alonso. 5th was Charles, followed by Lando, Carlos, George, Oscar, and Lance Stroll. Now, for the constructors standings, 1st place went to Red Bull. 2nd went to Mercedes. That was also a highly competed 4th spot. 3rd, Ferrari. 4th, McLaren. 5th, Aston Martin. Now, Mercedes yesterday, I believe, was 4 points ahead of Ferrari for that 2nd place spot. And then today, if Carlos Sainz had performed well, which I had predicted yesterday that it was probably going to be Mercedes who stayed in that 2nd place spot, it did not work out. Carlos was not able to score any points. Lewis and George both were able to score points. So obviously, 2nd place went to Mercedes. But Ferrari got 3rd, McLaren got 4th, which is pretty good considering where they were at the start of the season. 5th went to Aston Martin. Now to do a quick season recap, I will mostly just focus on the second half of the season for the sake of time constraints, but I mean, the one thing that stayed constant throughout the season was Max Verstappen and his performance. He had an amazing run this season. It was almost a perfect season. He won every race except for Singapore, which Carlos Sainz won. So, almost a perfect season, so close to it. But overall, it was an amazing run from him and for Red Bull. It's one of those seasons that you wonder if you'll ever see another one like it. And, after the race today, Max was being interviewed, and he said he knows that it's a hard season to see happen once again. And he's just him and Red Bull are gonna try their hardest to try to have another great season in 2024. But if we look at his teammate Sergio Perez, he had more of a mixed season, so he was in the same car as Max Verstappen. However, he did have a little bit more difficulty. There were races where he DNF'd, crashed, like Mexico, awful races. Then there were also some where he did amazing and finished on the podium next to Max. So for him, it was more of a mixed season, but for Max, it was an amazing season. Now, some parts of the second half of the season, mostly, that stood out to me the most were the revival or resurrection of McLaren. So the first half of the season was not great for them. The start of the season was awful. They DNF'd a few times, but the ending of the season was amazing. And the fact that Lando and Oscar now finishing in 5th or 6th position feel upset for that and frustrated that they weren't able to finish on the podium is a testament to how far McLaren has come from the start of the season, where even being in the top 10 would be considered good. Now, I was looking at Lando's interview yesterday after quali, where he was really, really upset about making that mistake in the last lap of Q3 and not being able to take that 3rd place from Oscar. And he said that his main goal for today was to take that 3rd place spot, and he didn't. So, he was obviously very frustrated with himself. And when you think of these specific things, like, oh, he didn't get 3rd place, he didn't get 2nd place, he messed up on this part of the track, he did this, he did that, it's easy to forget just how far McLaren have come, and they have come quite far. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do next season, and if they are able to keep up the pace, build a great car, and bring even more improvements, and, actually be able to win a race. Another point that stood out to me from this season was Singapore, obviously, not only because Carlos Sainz won and he was able to break Max Verstappen's winning streak, but also because that was one of the few races this season where we saw, like, pretty much the best performances from the other teams, like what they were capable of, because every weekend it's Max Verstappen dominating, a Red Bull domination pretty much, and you don't get to focus much on the other teams. But in Singapore, we were able to see just how capable the other teams and drivers are as well, and I think it was a great example of what this season could have looked like had Red Bull not been dominant. Because this season, I think, especially the ending of it, could have been very, very close. I mean, as we saw today with the drivers and constructor standings anyways, but it could have been one of the most interesting seasons in recent times, I think, if Red Bull hadn't been dominant. But anyways, another thing that stood out to me was Vegas. Definitely started off on the wrong foot. Lots of issues in the practice sessions and in quali, but the race definitely made up for some of it, at least, because many people have said that it was one of the best races of the season. Very, very interesting. Lots of great on-track battles as well, which is what we love to see. And the final point I'll talk about for the season recap is the return of Daniel Ricciardo. So I think in today's interview, he was talking about how he felt like he had just come back or had just started the season and now it's already over. And it's unfortunate for him because he came, I think, after the summer break, and then he was only in 1 or 2 races, and then he had the accident and had to get the surgery for his wrist and was out for a couple of weeks, and then he came back. But it's exciting to see what him and Yuki Tsunoda are going to do as teammates next season. And speaking of AlphaTauri, I'm not exactly sure about the details of this, but Red Bull and AlphaTauri have some sort of a deal where AlphaTauri is going to get the same car as the Red Bulls. So what that makes me think of now is, will it be 4 Red Bulls on the racing track next season? Because if it is, then that's really going to be lots of competition for the Mercedes, McLarens, and Ferraris. That's going to change things up a lot. So I'm not too sure about all the details about that agreement or deal. So if you guys know about it, please let me know in the comment section. But now to move on to my insight on next season. So I'll start with Mercedes. Obviously, Mercedes has got to bring lots of improvements on the car, a whole new car. I know that they probably want to throw this one off a cliff somewhere because Toto Wolff and Lewis Hamilton have been very vocal about their hatred for this car and how difficult it has been to drive it this whole season. But, you know, hopefully next season they will not have a car similar to the W14 model. They had a similar model last year as well, and they struggled with it. So, you know, Mercedes, if they're able to bring a great car, I think that they could really be contenders for the championship. And same with McLaren and Ferrari as well. You know, McLaren, the upgrades that they brought in the second half of the season are amazing. If they can somehow keep those in whatever car they build for next season, and if they can bring maybe a few more upgrades to it, tweak it a little bit, I think that they could really win races with that car and with the drivers too. And then for Ferrari, things aren't that easy. It's not just like Mercedes where you can build a new car and everything's going to be suddenly better, or with McLaren where a few updates are going to fix everything. But Ferrari struggles not just with the car, but also with their strategies. And there's also a lot of other problems that just, you know, it almost makes it seem like they're just unlucky. Like they just can't have something good happen to them. But, you know, Ferrari's got to build a good car. This car had its fair share of problems as well, just like the Mercedes. I don't think it was that bad though, but Ferrari's got to improve on the car, got to improve on the strategies, and focus on, you know, just having a better season next season. And Red Bull, will they be as dominant as they were this season? I hope not, only because I would like to see some close competitions for the championship. And I feel like we'll hopefully have a better season in 2024 if the Mercedes, McLarens, and Ferraris are able to become better teams and actually put up fights with the Red Bulls. So I'm optimistic about it and hopeful that, you know, next season will be more even. We'll see some more close racing and just some more fun as well on the track, right? And last thing I want to talk about for the next season in this video is Williams. So Alex Albon and Logan Sargeant. You know, Logan Sargeant was his rookie season, had a pretty rough season. However, he's not finishing with 0 points. I believe he has 3 points. So that's good for him. And Alex Albon, he also did a pretty good job. You know, Williams, when they realized how capable Alex Albon was in the car, I think they stopped sort of bringing upgrades to the current Williams and they started focusing on building next year's car. So I think that, you know, if they already have that head start and they know what kind of a car is going to work for Alex and for Logan, then I think that we could also see some great performances from those two next season as well. And I'm hoping that next season will be better for Logan Sargeant. You know, he's the only American representation as a driver that we have right now in Formula One. So, you know, seeing him succeed in Formula One in his second season would be a really great thing for American fans. And that is pretty much all I wanted to talk about in today's video. Before I end it, I would like to ask you guys some questions. So, what team do you think will dominate next season? Let me know in the comments. And do you think it's going to be another repeat of Red Bull domination? How do you think the McLarens, Ferraris, Mercedes are going to be next season? And what are your thoughts on what next season will look like? And good luck to all the Formula One teams, the drivers. I am hoping for a much better 2024 season, one with more fun competitions and close competitions, great on-track battles. But during the break of, I believe it's 97 days until the first race at the end of February, I will be trying to get out more content and some more fun videos, maybe some more recaps as well of the season and the specific teams. But until then, have a good time and I'll see you guys in my next video.